Oh,
Welcome to the Journey of Self-Growth podcast, episode 9. I'm ThE, the host of this event, which is created so myself and others can share perspective on the concept of it, in hopes that one another's insights would be relatable, increases awareness, and all right, and my bad. My volume is up. Sorry. Increases awareness. All right. I thought I turned my volume down. My bad, y'all. I'm gonna do that one more time. Welcome to the Journey of Self-Growth podcast, episode 9. I'm ThE, the host of this event, which was created so myself and others can share a perspective on the concept of it in hopes that one another's insights would be relatable, increases awareness, and inspires listeners to adopt and maintain such behavior. The definition of self-growth is the process of developing new skills, attitudes, actions, or reactions that can have a beneficial impact on your life and increases overall well-being. Today's featured guest is Trav Lyrics. Hello, Trav. How are you?
I'm well, ThE. How are you, ThE?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you asking. What can you tell me about yourself?
Well, I'm a male. I'm an American. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I got a couple of kids, 20 years old, 16 years old. Been married for 20 years now on paper. My wife and I have been together for like 35 years. And I'm an artist. I've released several albums since 1990. Graphic designer. I've designed a lot of graphics for people in small business, music, and barbershops, hair salons, real estate offices, things like that. And I founded a couple of clothing companies, like the one I'm wearing right now, 41510 Apparel. It's kind of classic in the Bay Area. Backwards, but it's all good though.
I like what you're wearing. What would your perspective be on the concept of self-growth?
Well, my concept of self-growth is upward and outward. So I believe that if you're going to grow, you're gonna, it's a concept of more, learning more, so that you can understand or overstand or understand yourself better. So, like I said, upward and outward, or moving forward and upward.
I relate to what you're saying, and I appreciate you sharing your perspective on that. How are you currently growing?
Well, I'm currently growing by going outside and being around different people, having some new experiences, and it's teaching me a lot about, the situations that I'm in right now, as far as clothing and music. I haven't been in this arena for a while because I was raising kids and I was an attempted financial educator, which was a completely different space than music and clothing. So as I go out now trying to understand the arena today, I feel like I'm growing more, meeting the people that I'm dealing with, and showing me how smaller, more intimate settings are what people value today. That's what it seems like, for a small business or small clothing designer.
I can I relate to what you're saying in terms of the smaller meetup culture. It seems like since the pandemic intimacy has become more valued amongst cultures and communities, at least from my perspective. And it could have been due to people involuntarily being in close confines with one another for long periods of time. What would you theorize that this trend of close quarter intimate settings be attributed to?
I'm thinking it's like maybe it is the pandemic. I mean, I understand that intimate settings have been around for a long time. For example, out here in the Bay Area, we have a club called Yoshi's, and it seats about maybe 300, 400 people. And, you know, you get real close to the artist as opposed to, say, an arena where you almost have to look, you can, sometimes depending on where you are, you have to look at the screen. But yeah, people with the pandemic, you had to be around either yourself or your immediate family. I just thought it was strange that the last time I performed in front of 14,000 people in San Jose Arena, Shark Tank. I think it's called the SAP Center. And that's what I wanted. But when I got out there, at the same time, I was like, "Ooh, man, this is big. I don't think I want this." But now that I'm outside now, it just seems like people are more comfortable with maybe 50, 60 people, a backyard setting, or maybe a cafe setting. Or I even went to one spot where it was a pandemic setup. There was we were in San Francisco in the Mission, and it was a boutique here. The sidewalk was here. And then do you know how during the pandemic you had to eat outside and they set up these structures on the curb?
Yes.
So the pandemic is over, but they turned this structure here into a DJ booth. And they were performing in the structure. The crowd was on the sidewalk and the boutique was here. But it was, even though people were walking past, it was still a small event. And I was like, this is interesting. But they was using that pandemic structure.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of using it as somewhere to eat, or they were using it as a DJ booth. And it was something like, yeah, the pandemic has something to do with it. Like, and you're in close quarters. Or maybe I just ain't never been in that kind of situation. I don't know. But it just seemed different. It seemed different. So, but pandemic, yeah, you can only have smaller crowds. You know, very few people could come into one space at a time, and people had to be spread out. But, you know, I guess people are okay with that now. I don't know. Maybe I just haven't been out enough. If that kind of answered the question, I'm kind of thinking through it as you asked me that. Why? But I don't know. We'll see. Maybe we'll do a part 2 of this, and I'll tell you if I'm still growing.
And because when growing up, I used to go to house parties, and it was an enjoyable event from a sociable context. And I think I would prefer to be at a house party rather than being at a concert, because at a concert, the interaction is limited amongst people in general. I think for me, I like a dynamic experience of not only watching a performer perform, but also being able to share my excitement with people while the experience is happening. In a large setting, it seems with the music being so loud, there's a small opportunity to share your perspective on what's going on at the time. So I prefer a smaller setting, though I think it's possible that a preference in terms of like a large versus a smaller venue may differ on a person to person basis. What would your preference be in terms of being entertained in a large versus a small setting?
I like a more intimate situation. I mean, I was gonna say maybe it's just me. I like a more intimate situation. I like where if I'm sitting with somebody, I like the conversation level music. At this age, I don't really like super loud music anymore. Even if
Mhm.
it's my music, you know what I'm saying? Maybe you let it slap a little bit, but then, if I'm trying to talk, if I'm trying to handle some kind of business, or if I'm trying to be heard, then obviously I want to be able to be heard without having to yell. But again, with that being said, I haven't been to a huge event, whether it was straight entertainment or informational, since pre-pandemic,
Mhm.
right? Because I do like trade shows, right?
Mhm.
The trade shows are a lot of people, but I haven't been to a trade show. But then again, I'm going to a trade show for information. I'm not going to a trade show to be entertained. You know
Mhm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes when you walk around a trade show, they have little booths, and you go into the booths, which bring you into an intimate situation. So, but you did ask me about entertainment. Entertainment specifically, I like a intimate situation,
Mhm.
and that's why as I'm going out, I like what I see. You know, like you ever look at the Tiny Desk concerts,
Yes.
that kind of stuff. I think that's what I like. And again, as far as growth, I think I'm trying to figure out how to get into that kind of a space,
Mhm.
you know, where you can display your goods, and you can be heard, and it's not a hard sell. I've never been into hard selling, but that's a different conversation.
In terms of being a businessman and um, selling products or services, would the size of a venue, does the size of a venue matter in terms of experiencing success with consumers?
Well, I guess it depends on what the product is and what it is that we're talking about. So, my arena has been the internet, and that's small or big depending on what the room is. So, if you're talking to 1,000 people, what are you what are you talking about? I mean, I've been to events where they say it's 15,000, 30,000 people in the room, and they say if you want this thing, run to the back, and people jump up and run to the back, right? But then you may just try to be doing a deal with one person. And obviously, if it's one person, you probably can get that done over dinner, or in a room where it's just you and that person. So I think it just depends on what it is what the product is, and who you talk to, how many people do you need to speak to at once, you know?
Mhm.
What do you say? How do you make $1 million, right? You can get $1 from 1 million people, or you can get $1 million from one person.
Mhm.
Intimate, one person can be intimate, right?
Yes.
Or you trying to get $1 million or $1 from 1 million people all at once, then you got to gather all those people at the same time. And how can you do that? You know, get them, online, or you can find you a room with 1 million people in it. But I prefer a smaller room.
And you have had success with selling your products, those in those situations where you're able to successfully sell your products in terms of like a percentage, where those experiences in an intimate setting more so than a large setting?
Nah, me, man, personally, when it comes to sales, I don't really have success at sales, right? I have more success when I'm sitting on a conversation with you right now, right? And whatever we're talking about, somebody would stumble across this conversation and they might see this shirt or this sweatshirt and they'll say, "Oh, I like that. Let me go look that up." Like, it almost has nothing to do with me particularly selling something. Like, if I come into a room and try to actually sell it, I'm probably going to lose that deal. Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like when people stumble across my work and it didn't have anything to do with anything I said. It wasn't like, hey, it slices, it dices, and things like that. It's just like your need met my availability, and you decided that it was time for you to get this thing. My
Mm-hmm.
job was just to show up and, talk nuts and bolts. Like, if I'm an artist, it's not I have better success just saying what it is that I did and why I did it and where I did it and when I did it and how it made me feel. And if you resonate with that, then maybe you will, uh, purchase that thing as a solution for your requirement, but not because I came to your door and, took you out to dinner or, gave you that sales pitch. No, I do better by just having a conversation, answering your questions, you know what I mean? As opposed to me trying to tell you what it is and how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yes, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And with that being said, it seems like what I was suggesting in terms of selling is a different act than how you go about um, exchanging your products with consumers for their money. And I don't know the term to describe what that is. If it's not selling, what would you call it?
I would just say more like marketing of a thing. Because, the way I explain it is marketing is like context. Marketing is what it is, where it is, how much it is, who did it, why. But then selling is literally taking the money in trade for that thing.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? For example, I can talk to you all day and never ask you for the money.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't, if long as no money changes hands, and I'm not expecting you to give me any money, I'm not expecting you to you're not expecting me, I'm not expecting to give you a thing, then it's not selling. It's more just conversation. It's marketing because, again, marketing tells you who, what, when, where, why, and how. So that's my I prefer that. And I prefer that in a smaller setting. And that's kind of like what I'm learning to do as I'm moving forward, forward and upward. I'm learning more of just, hey man, this is who I am, this is what it is, this is how it works. If you got any other questions, I can tell you. And then if you want to go get that thing, it's over there. And I think that's more, not only am I going in that direction for products and services, I just mean any kind of information, you
Mm-hmm.
know, at this age, I want to see you win, right? So I'm like, here's the information. There's where you can use it. You know, if we can build something together, we'll build it. And if not, great. So I'm saying if we can build something together, great. If we can't build something together, great. If you want to go buy that thing, great. If you don't want to go buy that thing, great. You know, I'm fine with it. I'm fine
Hmm. I'm glad you
whether you do it or not.
mhm. I'm glad you were able to elaborate on your business method, because I didn't know that there is an alternative to selling, which would be marketing. And I can imagine that others may not also have that type of awareness. And it's intriguing to me. And it also seems more simplistic to market to someone through engagement rather than selling, because I know, me personally, I do kind of feel uncomfortable when people are being forceful in trying to coerce me, or um, entice me to buy their product, because I think they're not being mindful of the possibility that what they have to offer is not practical to me. But if you're marketing to someone, it's like you have an awareness of what you can provide to them, but it's not like the priority in the conversation. It's incorporated in the conversation and it's available, but it's not going to be like forced upon the person that you're interacting with, which is, it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and you know, I don't know everything. So I know people that are far smarter than me, right? So what I look for when I'm talking to people is I look for, can I do I know somebody that can answer this question, right? Now, if I say, yeah, let me go talk, if I can bring my manager in, now you don't think that I'm trying to sell you something, but shit, I just don't know. But, you know, I mean, sometimes people talk to me and I get the gist of what they're saying, but it's so far over my head, I say duly noted, right? And if somebody is talking to me about that thing, I'm saying, hold it. I know somebody that you can talk to.
Mm-hmm.
You need to go talk to so and so because he's on that same frequency that you're talking about. Or, you know, something as simple as say, you want a pair of Panda Jordans. You know, obviously I don't sell shoes, but I know where they have a consignment store in Pinot where they have some Panda Jordans and you can go get, you know, I'm just listening. I try to listen more than talk. And then when I talk, I try to make sure that it's constructive, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That, that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
if it, yeah, so, but this, you know, I wouldn't necessarily consider that growth. I'm just bringing back the concept of growth.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I wouldn't consider that as growth because I started applying that in the late 2010s, mid 2010s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you got two ears and one mouth. So, you know, you're supposed to listen more and talk less. And then when you talk, make it valuable. And if I can't make it valuable, then maybe well, it still would be value. I would suggest that you go talk to another person or you go watch this person video or you go read that person's book. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's funny, now that I'm back outside on a music clothing level, I do more of that, right? Because
Yeah.
I talk to younger people who feel like they're gonna take over the world with their music and their clothing. And I'm not saying I did, but I'm saying I saw a lot of stuff over the last 30 years. And I just like, well, there's a documentary or, I tell them a story about what happened to me and I'll put a little twist in there and just say, it is 2023. So it might be a little different than 1999, but it sounds the same, So, take this little piece of information, go watch this video, or go follow this person, or maybe you want to read this book or watch this podcast so that can help you. From my perspective though, because obviously, if I was a billionaire, I would have a different kind of conversation, I think.
Mm-hmm. How you mentioned that you raised children for the last 10 years at least, and you were a stay-at-home dad. Was there any point during that time where you started to long to go back to being a businessman, or were you content with your that current situation?
Oh no, I stopped. When I stopped in 1994, I stopped being I call it an attempted business person. I stopped being an attempted business person. So no, I was already out there for 14 years. I bought into the idea that, you need to hustle all day and hustle all night and you can sleep when you're dead and all of that. So once I realized that about age 33, I was bullshit. No, I didn't have a problem coming in the house and just sitting down. Um, I actually, when I was still in the house, but I got back into a little bit of the business because some people in Europe and Japan, they found me. And I was still doing a little bit of business, but I didn't have to go outside because it was all over the internet. Did that make sense?
Yes.
The only time I had to go outside was when I went to the post office. You know, then my son got older and I would take him to the daycare, but I wasn't going like doing shows and different things like that. I wasn't outside like that. When I went outside, I was going to the daycare, I was going to the school, I was going to the post office, and I could just sit in the house, check the emails, chat with the guys over in France. I had a podcast for a short time, but I still didn't have to go outside. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's not that I had a longing to get back into it. A market found me, and it was perfect because if I'm in California and you're in Paris, or you're in Yokohama, or you're in Poland, you know that I'm not coming to see you tonight, right? You know that you got to wait 10 days. You know that you just understand, as opposed to somebody that might be in Oakland or San Francisco. They would expect me to jump in the car and drive over to San Francisco and serve them a T-shirt or a CD or something like that. And it's a lot easier to have a conversation with a guy in Japan and then go to the post office around the corner. You know, you don't even have to get out of the car to go to the post office. And well, not then, but I think at that time you could have the mailman come to your house and pick up your packages, I believe. But I'm just saying, no, I did not have a longing to go back outside. One of my buddies came and got me though, and he said, "Hey man, let's get into this finance thing." And this is about 2012. And he talked me into getting my life insurance license, health insurance license, and joining an organization to attempt to teach people financial education and get them started building their financial houses with, debt management, life insurance, and things like that. But, he came and got me. It wasn't like I was sitting in the house, burning to go back outside, but I did do that, and shit, you were there. I had to buy the idea hook, line, and sinker for it to make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another question.
I was just gonna say again, I didn't have a burning to go back outside and temp business. No.
And that's okay. Another question that came to mind was being the fact that it's possible that you endured maybe some criticism or irrational talk amongst peers, possibly, or even just other men due to you being a stay-at-home dad versus, like you said, being out hustling and breaking your back to fit a certain mold. How challenging was it for you during that time when you were focusing on being a stay-at-home dad, to endure those possible criticisms? And did that have an impact on your interpersonal intelligence, which is your sense of self?
No, my wife and I talked about it, just based on the way, elementary school, public schooling was going at the time. And, being that I was studying back then, I was really studying, context of why things are the way they are. How do we get into this mess? And one of the reasons that we got into this mess is because we weren't taught, how things work, from basic history and that you are valuable and you are not worthless to legal and lawful and indigenous, autochthonous people. It's just a lot of stuff I was learning at the time. And my son, he was sinking. Every time we sent him to school, he seemed like he just got worse. So we pulled him out of school like that. And we became homeschooling parents. So when my wife and I talked about it, it was like, this is what we're gonna do. So, if somebody thought that I was weak because I wasn't out killing a lion, or bringing home the bacon or whatever, I'm like, whatever. Again, from 2004, like 2003, 2004 to about 2007 and 8 is when I was really just a straight at-home dad. But around 2007, 2008 is when I found the market in Europe and Japan. So I didn't worry about what people thought because I didn't have to talk to people in America anymore. Right? So they could say whatever they want to say. I knew that I was at home. I was an at-home dad. I was homeschooling my kids. I was, doing business with people in other countries. And it didn't matter what people said. because I knew, and I didn't bother trying to tell people, because the times when I did try to tell people, they didn't believe it anyway, right?
Yeah.
They didn't believe it anyway. They was like, nah, that's impossible. And even when I would show them that, you know, my kids are successful in the homeschooling program, and, you know, I just have a podcast in France. You know, it's like, no, that don't make no. It's like cognitive dissonance would kick in. So I just got to the point where I just didn't even talk about it to Americans anymore. And if you came across my show, or you came across my products on eBay or whatever, like, you know, whatever you thought, I didn't care, you know, because again, either I am or I'm not being successful. And around 2001, 2002, I had to redefine my definition of success so that I wouldn't go fucking crazy, right? And my definition of success is, did I accomplish my goal, right? Mm-hmm. I can only do what I can do. I can only do what I can do. So if I say that I want to be a homeschooling parent and make sure that my children graduate at the top of the class, you know, I have to be the best homeschooling parent, the best coach that I can be, right?
Yes.
But making sure that they graduate at the top of the class, I kind of need them. It would be, did I do the best I could do, right?
Yeah.
That's success to me. You know, that's success to me. You know, I can make an album. I can't make you give me your money, right? Yeah. I can make a design and put it on a t-shirt. I can't make you wear it. So success for me is in the doing of the thing, or the making of the thing, but not dependent on you. Does that make sense?
Yes. Not only does it make sense, but I can relate to what you're saying. It seems like, well, what I admire about that statement that you made is I think I'm passionate about having a sense of self, enhancing my interpersonal intelligence, and though the experience you just shared in terms of not caring or not having not being affected by what people may say in terms of in terms of what you define as success, to me demonstrates that it's possible to live by your own terms and conditions for yourself without having to conform to what other people think you should do. And you can also have a sense of like fulfillment. So I think that was valuable to me.
Yeah. And keep in mind too, I removed money from my definition of success, because I can't control whether you give me money or not. I can control whether or not I, you know, give you my time. You know what I'm saying? Because what is a job? A job is, I agree to give you my time and energy to make your business successful and trade for green paper rectangles that will help me to feed my family, right?
Yeah.
So just because you give time and energy to a job don't mean they're going to payroll. The company don't make payroll, right? Does that mean that you're not successful? No, I mean, you did what you said you was going to do, right?
Yeah.
You got up, you went and did what you said you was going to do, and the success is in that thing. So, you know, we live in a system where some people get off on making sure that you don't have green paper rectangles, or they get off on making you work extra hard for less green paper rectangles,
Mm.
you know? So that's the way that I felt in the 90s and the early 2000s. I felt like I was just working so hard, almost at people's entertainment, you know? You put a lot of energy into something and then nobody buys it. So now, or let me rephrase it. I put a lot of energy into a thing. I present it to the people. The people don't buy it. Now I felt like a failure. Now I felt depressed, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on, wait a minute. I had an idea. I made the idea tangible. I presented it to the people, and the people said no. Or they said, give me more, or they said, give me something else. But I'm like, wait a minute. I did what I said I was going to do. So for me, the success stops at the I did what I said I was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as another person comes in and I'm kind of dependent on that person, then I'm not, especially when it comes to money, I'm dependent on that person to give me some money.
Yeah.
And if that person doesn't give me money, then I'm a failure. No, I had to remove that thought process out of my psyche and say, I did everything that I could do, right?
Yeah.
Morally, right? Because there's a lot of people who, they throw morals out the window in order to get green paper rectangles, right? So I'm just saying that morally, I've done everything that I could do. So that's successful. But if I say that I'm going to design a shirt and then I don't design a shirt, then that's unsuccessful for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. In
So I
terms of
took money out. I took
Mhm.
money out and made it about accomplishment, personal accomplishment kind of situation.
I think your method of like success is something that I would apply to my own self, and hopefully others who are listening would also consider that, because it seemed like it's the more practical way of going about experiencing success. And though I know it's challenging to not try to fall into the temptation of trying to meet the expectations of someone outside of yourself. With that being said, was there a turning point for you where you decided to no longer um, attempt to meet someone else's expectations? Or have you always maintained this pattern of like maintaining boundaries and having a sense of personal successes?
I think around age 32, 33, I concluded that it's all about energy, right? So, you know, I have certain energy in my body to do certain things. If I could barter, then I don't need to kill myself for money, right? If I could figure out a different way to get this thing, then, and when I say a different way, I often, even when I was young, I guess I would say, gotta be a better way, right?
Yeah.
But then around 32, 33 is when I said, it's definitely a better way. And, I got a part in the song that says, if I got chickens and you got pigs, then we don't need paper to make bacon and eggs, right?
Yeah.
We can just trade, you know what I mean? And it's value for value. Because really, what is money? Money is, somewhere that you store your value until you get ready to use it. Where, what is it called when you got like fruit and shit and it go to waste? Perishable. It's a non-perishable place to say to put your value, whether it's gold or stocks or things like that. But, cash is something that you can use right now and you don't have to wait. But like I say, the turning point was about 33, 30, 32, 33. And I just said, you know what? I don't have to break my body to accomplish this, to get this paper. I can find somebody who has a thing that I value, and I can trade my knowledge and my ability to get that thing. As long as I believe it's of equal value, though. You know what I mean? I'm trying not to work harder. I'm trying to work smarter. That's my goal.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a turning point I had in the early 2000s, 2001, 2002. I was like, this is crazy out here spending up all this time and energy so people can laugh and tell you that you're not valuable and put you down. Well, put me down and tell me that I'm not valuable and tell me that I'm not worth this thing or I can't afford it, And then when you start understanding how much what is it worth? Is it worth not $500, but is it worth 2 or 3 hours of my time? Like I used to work for this company called Webvan. It was basically the predecessor to Amazon, where they deliver stuff. And we deliver groceries to people in like the Oakland Hills mainly. And I asked this one lady, I said, why do you order these high priced groceries at this premium price? And the lady, she kind of stopped and she said, look, I'm an attorney. I make $500 an hour. For me to go to the grocery store, it costs 2 hours of my time. She said, so that's $1,000 that I could have made with a client as opposed to going to the grocery store. So I actually save money by having you deliver my groceries. And I was like, oh, this lady values time. And if I'm willing to sell my time for $15 an hour, who is she to tell me not to do that? Right?
Yeah.
So again, that was around that same period. It was around 98, 99 when I was doing that. And that lady, she said that, and I was like, oh, so you got to value your time. And growing up, we wasn't taught to value time. I mean, shit, my first job was minimum wage. It was $3.35 an hour. Now $3.35 an hour today's money probably would be, that $15 that people was asking for.
Yeah.
But I'm saying little conversations like that, little interactions like that made me have that paradigm shift.
Mm-hmm.
People pay for what they cannot do. And this is something else somebody told me. People pay for what they cannot do or what they refuse to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's just about timing, How valuable is it to you? Right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's 2:00 in the morning and your toilet just exploded. If you can fix it, fix it. If you can't fix it, this is going to become very valuable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if they're unwilling to fix it, they're going to have to call somebody that's willing to come fix it. And that's, my price is my price. But, sometimes they'll devalue you only to get your time and your energy for cheaper. and then they'll take your time and your energy and resell it, because
Mm,
they know your value. Well, people knew my value, but I didn't know my value.
mm,
So again, this is all around the turn of the century. I use it, turn of the century, right?
yeah.
This all happened around the turn of the century. I was like, wait a minute. Hit Jesse Jackson. I am somebody. I am valuable. I did sit down and learn how to. I did sit down and learn how to do these graphics. I did sit down and learn how to build a curriculum for these kids so that they could, you know, matriculate, better than what I thought they were being given in, well, my son specifically, what I thought he was being given in, his school. I did do that. So yeah, it's just, synapses. You like, I can't do this. Don't tell me that I can't, you know. But you always find somebody that's smarter than you. Well, I often run into people that's smarter than me, and they tell me, well, yeah, you can't read. Yeah, you good, but you ain't that good. You don't understand. Even at this age, every day, I think that I've learned something, and I think that I've grown, only to find out that that's just one more stone that needs to be uh, turned over, and it's more information over there, and it's more information, and so when do growth stop? But I'm just saying, yes, there was a time where I had a paradigm shift, and I said, I've had enough of this shit.
Now, so that, I mean, I want to focus on the pivot and the turning point based on what you said earlier. It seems you decided to change your business plan or business strategy from exchanging products and services for money, but rather use offering products and services for products and services from someone else. As I think about that change, I can imagine during that time it could be a little bit frightening, because if you had at least some money coming in from your previous strategy, it would have been possible for you to not have any money at all. Well, yeah, it wouldn't even, I wouldn't even say possible. If you're bartering, there was going to be no money involved. However, we live in a society that requires money for expenses. So,
Right.
um, what was the result of your decision to change your business plan, and how challenging was it for you as you went a different path and direction?
Well, it just turned out that money became a tool, right? Just like your shoes keep your feet off the ground. You know what I mean? A fork is used to, get the food instead of using your hand. So I decide what's valuable to me, right? So the concept was, I wasn't, just because you didn't have any money, it doesn't mean that I wouldn't do the job. I would just say, well, what do you have? And then I would decide if it was valuable to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I have shirts and you have a shoe store that sells shirts, and I needed some shoes, I would trade, a few shirts for a pair of shoes, because I was gonna go buy shoes anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you had laptops and I needed a new laptop, I would trade a laptop for a logo, or I would trade an album cover for a beat. You understand what I'm saying? But if green paper rectangles is what I need right now, then that's just what I need right now. But it ain't like I'm saying, you better give me green paper rectangles. Cause that's the phrase when it finally dawned on me that money is a tool, just like anything else, I started calling it green paper rectangles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So today I must have green paper rectangles because the thing that I'm going to acquire, that person will only take green paper rectangles. That's, or imaginary credits or debits or whatever you want to call it, right? They only will take that. For example, if I'm trying to pay a credit card bill, Visa is not going to say, design a logo. They're not going to accept that. So on that day, I'll say, well, man, I need, $2,000. But that's because that's the tool that gets the job done. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I wanted
That's the
to
tool that gets. Go ahead.
I wanted to add some insider context for the listeners. Going back to a segment where you said if I were to get possibly some shoes from a vendor, I would exchange that for a logo. So for people who are not aware, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, the logo that you're referring to would be a logo that you would design for them, which would be a service in exchange for a product that they would have to offer, correct?
Exactly. I would trade my time and energy to design a logo in a trade for that product or service that they have. In this situation, it was the shoes.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like one day I traded there was a guy who needed some CDs burnt, right? This was back in the mixtape days. He needed some CDs burnt. And he was a telephone man, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we had just moved into our new house. We needed a new jig. We needed a jack in one room. So when he called me and he asked me to make him these CDs, he was like, how much? I was like, you're a telephone man, right? And he was like, yeah. I said, look, if you could put a jack, in my office, then, I'll give you the CDs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. We traded some time and energy. It took me some time and a few CDs. And I don't even think he wanted CDs. I think he wanted labels for CDs. You remember when you had the blank CDs and you had to put a paper label on top of it?
Yeah.
He wanted me to design some custom labels for him and print them.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't even have to burn the CDs. He had the CDs already. He just wanted custom labels.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
and that was the trade because this is what I need. What is valuable to me? It's valuable because I want it. I can't put a phone jack in my own room. People pay for what they cannot do or refuse to do.
Mm-hmm.
If I knew how to do it, I would have did it myself, right?
Yeah.
But I couldn't do it, so I would have had to pay for it. But because I have a skill and he had a need that he valued, we were able to make that trade. And I do that, you know, whenever possible, I'll do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And it seems like with the bartering strategy compared to the monetary strategy of using money, to get a product or a service from someone else, I could see, or I can imagine, the value of bartering with someone versus just simply giving them money. Because if you are a graphic designer and can create logos, you're not only are you like enhancing the awareness of the person that you're going to make the exchange with, but you're also, I feel like, enhancing the relationship with that person, because they can actually see your service or your product in comparison to you just simply going there and using money to buy their shoes. And long term, if they now know that you can create a logo for them, they could share that information with someone else who they know. But if you just was using money to buy the shoes, they probably would have never known that you're a graphic artist. So I like the bartering strategy in terms of like building a interpersonal relationship with other people too. I think it seems like it may be more valuable than just simply giving someone money. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, yeah, and when you're doing things like that, you have to have some kind of information. You have to have some data. You got to answer some questions. You got to kind of get into the person's head, you know. But other transactions, not so much. You know, I'm going to work. I'm running out of gas. I don't care about your interpersonal anything. Ring me up. I need $40 on phone now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, you don't have time for all of that. You know, you gotta go. So, but absolutely, you know, when you're dealing with things where you're creating things and you're using your skill in your hands, and you know, you have to find out what the issue is, you know, so you can, or what the requirements are, you know. That's why if I when I talk to people, I use requirements and solutions. You know, does this requirement feel, or does this solution fill your requirement?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Does this solution fill your requirement? I got solutions. I share information, and you know, sometimes that conversation that you have, it'll build the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, some people use that stuff against you too. You know, I'm you know, not thinking in a negative, but you know how some people, they take your information and then they, you know, they use it to make you uh feel bad. You know, that's
Mm-hmm.
why your mama ain't got no. You know what I'm saying? That's why when you was a kid, your daddy didn't. You know, so a lot of people don't want to be vulnerable like that because they don't want to use it against them. So sometimes it's better just to, or it's better for them, makes them to use just here, take this money, give me that thing. I'm not telling you anything about my personal life. I'm not telling you anything about my requirements. I'm not telling you nothing. Just,
Mm-hmm.
I want that, and that's the transaction.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and that's okay too. But I try not to let people drive me crazy with their confusion.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
and you know, it's not a it's easier now than when I was younger, but because now I have, again, context. I know that some people feel better when they make you feel bad.
Mm.
I know that some people, they understand your value more than you understand your value.
Mm.
So they'll talk you out of your time and your energy. They'll talk you out of your products and your services, and they'll tell you that they're doing you a favor when really they're taking advantage of you, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I see it all the time now, because, some people are really good at being evil. They're really good at, really good at taking up your time and your energy and making you feel bad,
Mm-hmm.
like it. So I'm not saying that I'm that good, I'm that raw, that I see it all the time, but I am saying that, I I try to stay away from that. I got this shirt that I created called it's a hashtag, uh like it's a less confusion series. So I got one that say hashtag more peace, less confusion, hashtag more context, less confusion. What is another? It's four of them. I can't remember the other one. But that's two. That's two of them. More peace, less confusion. More context, less confusion.
Yeah. You mentioned you said earlier that you're not trying to let other people's confusion like drive you crazy. How can you detect when someone is confused?
when it just doesn't make any sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you heard this phrase people use recently, the math ain't mathing.
Yeah.
Like I try to put it together and say, well, if one and one equals two, or is it, A plus B equals C? And if it just doesn't make any sense to me, and if I go bounce it off of somebody and they say it don't make any sense either, then I'm just like, this is confusion, you
Mm-hmm.
know, this is confusion. Or if I know there's a dog around the corner that's known for biting people and you're trying to talk me into going around the corner, that's confusion, like I've seen this movie several times and you're trying to tell me that I'm I didn't see what I saw,
Yeah.
or this has happened to me. I've experienced this problem several times, and you're not giving me anything that's going to change the outcome of my previous experience. So this is confusion. So
Yeah.
I don't want to have anything to do with this. You know what I mean? Then I try to avoid confusion. I try to avoid it. But sometimes you're in the middle of it and it's too late. You're already in it. So now I'm just trying to mitigate the confusion until I can figure out a way, until not figure out a way, until I can figure a way out.
Mm.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And depending on who it is or what it is that I'm doing, like if it's for my children or my wife, I might have to just stand in there. I might have to be the wall between the confusion and my family, and
Mm-hmm.
then I just have to take that. I just have to take it. That's my job as a father. My
Mm-hmm.
job is to be that barricade between the confusion and the kids, because the kids don't understand, you
Yeah.
know. And for me to try to explain it to them, that's even more confusion. She's like, look, you just get behind me. Like when my children were younger, when we walked through the airport, I used to say, look, I'm here, you're here, your mother is there. Y'all stay in the middle. Or your mother's in the front, I'm in the back. and y'all stay in the middle because we creating this wall of protection from potential confusion, right? And I say, while you're in here, your job is to pay attention because eventually you're going to be the barrier. So you got to know what to do. But then sometimes they want to run around and they want to be in the front, and you walk in and they want to be in the front, but they got to keep looking behind them to see where you're going. So they walking and you done made a left. Now they got to turn around and catch up to you, but they still want to jump in front. So how you gonna be the leader, but you gotta constantly look behind you to see where we're going? That's confusion.
Yeah.
You can't, if you don't know where we're going, how you gonna be the leader?
Some people, I've heard a statement say, there was a statement that I heard, it states, there's a time and place for everything. If there's a time for confusion, why would you theorize that is? In terms of experiencing it or enduring the confusion when you're in the middle of it, why would you theorize it's a time for that?
Well, confusion happens. I watched it, but again, confusion happens. But you say a fly and a spider. For the fly is confusion, but for the spider is dinner. It's not confusion for the spider. The spider knows exactly what's happening. The fly is in the web, like, oh my God, what's going on? Oh, this is terrible. I'm stuck, right? So that goes back to context, and that goes back to perspective. You know what I'm saying? What's confusion for me may not be confusion for you. That's what I talk about. I know some people who, they do a lot of reading and they know a lot about law and they know a lot about legal and court systems and things like that. And they try to tell me what I need to read. But when I look at it, it's so confusing to me that I can't comprehend it. Right?
Yeah.
So when I'm walking with this person, we're side by side, but I walk directly into the confusion and they walk around it or they walk through it because they can see things that I can't see because they've read and understood and I just don't understand. You know what I mean? So we're in the same room. We have the same circumstances, but they just have a better understanding of, jurisdiction and, consent. I may have consented to something, but they stepped around the consent because they've done the reading. I may have done the reading, but I don't comprehend. So now I'm mixed up in confusion and they are not. They got peace.
Yeah.
Because they understand or overstand or understand again. And the difference for me, the difference between overstanding and understanding is this. So if you're standing under something, all you know is what's underneath this thing, right? Yeah. But if you overstand something, you can look down on it and see around it. Okay. You can see what's going on. The difference between being on the ground and 30,000 feet in the air. Yeah. Right? You have a different perspective, so you have an overstanding of this thing. And when I say understanding, I mean you inside your body, you know how this thing is affecting you. You know, whether it's your medical health or your mental health, or it's about your inner your your interstanding, your inner standing of a thing.
Yeah.
So that's why I throw that in there. I say whether you understand, so because you can be the greatest person on the ground, right? But being 30,000 feet up, you got a whole different perspective of the world.
Yes.
But you might be a person who don't understand. You can't comprehend how it's affecting you mentally.
Yes.
Like that. So again, confusion is necessary, but what's confusing for me may not be confusing for you. And it don't make you a bad guy. It just means that you have a better comprehension of what's going on. Does
I
that
can
make
relate.
sense?
Yeah, I can relate to it. I think for me, using personal experience working as a stagehand, working with different individuals who come from different parts of the country, I discovered that people communicate differently. And depending on the person, they may not be as communicative. Excuse me. They may not be as communicative as someone that I've worked with before. And how they express themselves may be confusing to me. And
Hold on a second.
sometimes I feel the pressure of like executing what I need to do during my job. So I think when I'm experiencing confusion that's unexpected or possibly something that I don't prefer, I still see the value in it because it helps me to realize that I could remain calm or I could panic in this situation. And if I choose to continue to conduct myself in a calm manner, then hopefully the confusion will subside over time. And if it does subside and I'm able to endure and push through, I feel like I'll become a different person than I was before, previously to encountering that confusion. So that's my theory in terms of why we could possibly endure a confusing circumstance or a circumstance that presents uncertainty. Like you said, confusion may be contextual, because just because I'm confused doesn't mean that you're confused in the present moment. So, and I like how you said, if someone, like, you're in a room with someone and they are presenting information from a third person, they may do well in addressing the situation because they are prepared through, like you said, they know the law, or they may not sign a contract because they have that understanding of, I'm not going to do this because of this. In comparison or contrast to yourself, you may have already signed the contract, and as a result, you may be in a confused state, which is still okay, but it may in the moment you may have to do a little bit more to see yourself through the situation. And so you can still grow in the confusion it was seen.
Oh yeah, man. What you got? Let's say it's three things you can do when confronted with a situation. You can fight it, you can accept it, or you can collapse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like run away, fight it, accept it. Well, collapse or run away, right? Collapse or run away. If you collapse, then you're still there to, you know, receive the consequences. But if you run away, you're still not dealing with it. So it's kind of the same thing. So you can fight it, accept it, or run away, or quit, give in, and whatnot. So, you know, when you make it through a struggle, you come out stronger, you know. Hopefully, you're not damaged too much that you can't recover,
Yes. It
you
seems
know.
like for those who and correct me if I'm wrong or correct or feel free to tell me if you disagree, but it seems like the individuals who come out of a situation um possibly stronger and also damaged, they're damaged because maybe they have panicked in that time of uncertainty or confusion, which could have been avoided.
Well, it depends. Depend on what the thing is. Like, you know, just blowing all the way out of proportion, you know, a gunshot to the chest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you might be damaged to the point of death. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
But you get grazed by the bullet or somebody just hurt your feelings. You know what I mean? It's the damage depends on what it is. You know, somebody might have no scratches, but they're mentally damaged.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got PTSD from the trauma of whatever that thing is that happened to you. You look fine, but you know, on the inside, you know, it's all bad.
Mm-hmm.
So you might not recover from it. Now you gotta, I don't know how you cope with that. You know, different people cope different ways when you got coping mechanisms. You know, some people cope through drugs, other people cope through exercise, some people cope through, you know, working, you know. Shit, some people cope by quitting and running away. You know what I mean? So what is the damage and how extensive is the damage and what does damage look like? That shit could be anything,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if you make it through and you understand those lessons, again, I got another shirt I say, I got a brand that I make called L's Make W's, right? Hashtag L's Make W's. Lessons make wisdom. A lot of times people say, you know, you gotta take losses so that you can win. And that's what I said at first, but then I say lessons make wisdom, you know, and you learn, you know, when you come through that struggle, and you learn when you come through the confusion. You learn when you learn a lesson. Hopefully, you take heed to the message. You know what I mean, and you don't do that again. You
Yeah.
know, or you do it again, depending on what the consequence is or what the benefit is or whatever. So, but you know, children, they don't know. You know, they fall down and say, okay, I don't want to do this again. Or, you know, you get an F on school or whatever, or, you know, you make a left turn when you should have made a right turn and you get a bad consequence. You don't do that again. Get a
Mm-hmm.
good consequence, you do that again. And sometimes that's the trick, right? Motherfuckers how you doing the wrong shit for a benefit, and now you've been trained to do this thing that goes against your best interest, but it's a short term benefit,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But you want to feel good, and this thing makes me feel good. That's why, you know, a lot of people do drugs because it makes them feel good. But ultimately, it's a bad situation that comes out of drug abuse.
Yeah, I agree
You
with you.
know.
In terms of
So,
in terms of the three forms of understanding, understanding, and overstanding, are they equally relevant or does one take priority over the other?
No, I think it's all based on perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I think depending on where you are and what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta. I mean, ideally, we all want to have the best results, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I got my feet on the ground, but I know what happens looking down from 10,000 feet up, that's going to help me move while I'm on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So if my feet are on the ground, but I understand the atmosphere, then I know that this is what I should do if
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the ground.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I'm, you know, in a hot air balloon or on a plane or something like that, there's different circumstances when you're 10,000, 30,000 feet up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So depends on your situation. And just like again with the understanding, that's like a mental situation. If I know that doing this is gonna screw me up screw up my head, then I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
If I stay in this place and I know it's affecting me mentally, then I need to move around.
Mm-hmm.
But again, bad or good, we want the best results, but sometimes just because it feels good, it's not the best result. Did that make sense?
Yes.
So you have to, if you have to, like, you understand, I understand this thing, and I know that this is not good for me. So I'm not gonna do it, even though it feels good.
When as you
So
as you describe understand, what a word that comes to mind is morality. Is morality relevant to understanding from your perspective?
well, what is morality, right? So if you got more, you talking about morals, what I'm willing to do and what I'm not willing to do in order to acquire a benefit,
Yes.
you know. Yeah. So that's morality is an intangible, right?
Yeah.
So it's a characteristic. It's a thing that happens on the inside. It's a thought process, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I will go along with that. If you have no morals, if you willing to put your morals, if you do, if your mother and father, a church or whatever it is that you use as a gauge to do a thing, you willing to throw all that to the side so that you can have this experience, then you know maybe you do understand the thing, but you still go ahead on and do it because you threw the morals out the window.
Mm-hmm.
Did that make sense?
Yeah. I appreciate you elaborating. We're gonna move on to we're gonna move on to the next segment of the podcast, which is titled the multiple intelligence theory. I'm gonna share my screen. Let's see, hold on, y'all. Okay, here it is. Can you see that, Trav? The diagram.
That's an intelligence.
Yeah.
Spatial. understanding, musical, logical.
To give the listeners a brief description of the multiple intelligence theory, there's two theorists who created theories in terms of intellect. One is more popular than the other one and adopted by institutions and most societies. And that theory suggests that we as individuals possess three forms of intelligences. Those would be naturalist, logical, mathematical, and the other is linguistic. So as a result, we tend to schools, especially during high school, we get tested on those forms of intelligences, and depending how well you perform in these on this test, they conclude that how successful you'll be in the next level of schooling, which would be college. However, there's another theorist named Howard Gardner who theorizes that we have not only those three intelligence mentioned, but an additional six, which would total 9. And he suggests that yes, all of these intelligences we possess, and depending on practice and repetition, the individual can increase the intellect of each in degree. And I present this multiple intelligence theory because I'm a proponent and adopter of it based on my personal journey in life. I can relate to it. And I'm hopeful that others will be open to the possibility of considering that they also have multiple intelligences, because I've been a witness to people thinking of themselves as lesser than someone else because they are not their mathematical, linguistic, or scientific intellect isn't as high as someone else who has dedicated time and energy to enhance them. I think it's possible that we can enhance these, each one, if we dedicate or invest our energy in doing so. With that being said, Travis, I want to ask, of the 9 intelligences, which do you sense you have high degrees in? And how would you recommend others to increase their degrees of intellect in the areas where you have this high degree of intellect?
Well, based on your diagram here, you say, what do I think I excel at, or I have here?
Yeah. Which of do you which one or more of the 9 do you feel like you have high degrees of intellect, and how would you suggest others increase their degrees of intellect in the ones mentioned by you?
Well, I think I excel in all 9. Because I'm kind of a dope dude, and I'm gonna stand on that. um, well, I guess first people would have to understand these intelligence these intelligence types, and then they would have to practice. I mean, like you look at existential tackling the questions of why we live and why we die. I mean, if you're gonna answer a question based on your own knowledge, because you only know what you know, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't go seek other, if you don't go seek information, then you're always gonna come to the same conclusion. So you have to learn more or read about it or have some conversations with some other people or explore other ideas, interpersonal, sensing people's feelings and motives. I mean, you can read about people's senses and motives all day, but eventually you'll have to go outside and deal with it in real life, you know, as opposed to what you got the lecture and the lab in school.
Yeah.
First you talk about it and then you go into the lab so that you can prove it or
Mm-hmm.
disprove it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you got to practice this stuff. Coordinating your mind with your body, bodily kinesthetic. And they got a little character where they're working out. So, I'm thinking some sort of physical activities, right?
Yeah.
How do you get better at anything, whether it's weight training or football or, eye-hand coordination? You gotta practice. Linguistic, finding the right words to express what you mean, right? So one of the things that I learned being at home, as homeschooling is, and if you read well, you write well, and if you write well, you speak well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what is it? If you write well, you read. If you read well, you write well. And if you write well, you speak well, because you got to learn how to read so that you can know how to write. And then after you read what you wrote, then you begin to speak how you write. So often, like if people speak slang, people don't write that way. Like I use the word finna. Some people say finna. Some people say fixing to. When you write, if you're writing a letter to somebody to try to acquire a loan, you're not gonna say I'm fixing to start a business, right? So you're gonna say you're gonna write differently than that. So So I'm just saying that in order to get better at any of these things, you have to practice this stuff.
Yeah.
Spatial visualizing the world in 3D. That's kind of the analogy I use about the dog around the corner. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I can tell you that it's a dog around the corner all day. Now you can believe me. You can wholesale believe it and just never go. But if you go around the corner and you see that dog, now you really know there's a dog over there. And if the dog bites you, now you got a pain. You have a feeling to go along with that explanation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can tell you that I got bit by the dog around the corner, and you don't want to go over there because it hurt, but you don't feel it.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
if you really want to experience the same thing that I did, you got to get bit by that dog. So that's a spatial visualizing the world. Yeah, man. So if I said, automatically I go to musical, but I don't think they show a DJ, but I don't think they really mean music. I think they mean just sounds like
Mm.
pitch and tone, even in a conversation. You're
Mm.
talking to somebody, you have to understand that this is a friendly tone or this is an unfriendly tone. This person may mean harm to you, or those screeching tires mean get out of the way, you know. And I'm thinking like, rarely do you see an earthquake, but you can hear one, right? You ever sit in a house and you hear, this is the Bay Area. You can hear that earthquake. Oh, you like, that is not a good sound. you hear it, and you're like, you know how we are. I don't know if you do it, but whenever we had a small earthquakes around here, especially the loud ones, it'll get and then you kind of freeze for a minute. I kind of freeze for a minute, and I'm like, is this it?
Mm-hmm.
And then it stops, and you're like, okay, this is not it. But that's a very violent sound when that earthquake comes,
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, obviously they got a DJ here, a DJ icon, but I don't think they mean music in that sense of the word.
Mm-hmm.
Quantifying things, make it happen. Yeah, I try to be logical and mathematical, and sometimes when people want you to be confused, they throw logic out. They want you, they want you to remove logic from the whole situation. We should go do this because it's gonna feel good. And you're like, no, I don't think we want to do that, because if we do that, then this is gonna happen, and boo boo boo. And like, fun.
Cool. Well,
So I'm definitely spatial. I try to look at the world and see what's happening around me to make a decision if I want to go this way or that way. And I'm always concerned about safety.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
And I'm always listening, but I think that's coming from Richmond, California. You always got to keep your head on a swivel.
Yeah.
And then being so-called Black in the United States of America, you got to keep your head on a swivel too, because you never know what someone else has been taught, how they've been taught to treat you. So, but yeah, so yeah, like I say, man, I'm real analytical, and I listen for, negativity, and I look around all the time. I use words, but sometimes I don't care if you understand what I'm saying, because as a rapper, I want you to, be confused at first, but then I want you to listen to it 3 or 4 times for you to catch the different layers of what I'm saying. Like, there's a song that I did with this dude in France. It's called I'm Your Daddy. That's easy to understand. But the second part is broken words, right? So in the song, I say, you don't have, I know why I can't be heard, because you don't have time for broken words. So on the face value of it is broken words, lies, right? But if you really think about it and you look at it, it says, I can't be heard because you don't have time for broke in words. Right? And obviously the Matrix took the word nigga and turned it into N word. Still means the same thing. You just don't say Nigga. So in the song, it says, I understand why I can't be heard, because you ain't got time for a broken word. But if you slow it down, it says, I understand why I can't be heard, because you ain't got time for broke niggas. And you classify me as a broke nigga, but you don't understand that I've taken money out of my definition of success, and I'm successful because I did what I could do based on my own actions. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's levels to the song.
Yeah.
Right. So I do use words. And so on that part where it said linguistics, yeah, I'm all about that too. But when you write songs like that, I can't really care if you get it the first time, and I can't really care if you want to listen to it 3 or 4 times, because some people might just think it's whack, right?
Mm.
That song sucks because that line was so simple. But it's not that the line was simple, it's just that you didn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And you refuse to listen to it again or analyze it because, you're not analytical, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
that's why at some point I wish somebody gonna listen to my raps and they're gonna be like, oh, this dude was real. He had more than metaphors and similes. This thing meant had different definitions on different levels of your personal understanding.
Mm.
Yeah, but I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. You know, you took the thing off the screen, but yeah, as far as the linguistic, I'm that too.
Okay. No, I appreciate you sharing your intellects and your methods and strategies of how to enhance them. I'm being mindful of the time. We have 7 minutes left of the show. I did want to transition to a new section of the show called interpreting expression, to describe what that means.
Expression. All right, go ahead.
To describe what that is, I'll choose a statement, which could be a question, or I'm sorry, I'll choose a verb, a linguistic expression, something written, which could be a statement or a question, and I'll ask how you would interpret the expression. We may have to continue on with this segment in the next podcast, but I do hope to get at least your interpretation of it. The expression is nature over narrative. How would you interpret that?
I would interpret that by nature over narrative. Nature is the truth. It is what it is. Narrative is what somebody told you that it is,
Mm-hmm.
or what you're trying to tell somebody what it is, or what I'm trying to make you believe that it is.
Mm-hmm.
Nature is, right?
Yeah.
That's it. Nature is.
Mm-hmm.
Narrative is somebody's rendition, somebody's idea, somebody's story.
Okay. I think my interpretation of it too would be about similar to what you said. I think for me, I think nature seems to take precedence over narrative, because it seems that nature does not operate or function off of a narrative. It seems like I mean, like you said, it is the truth. It doesn't need me to dictate how it should exist or sustain itself. It does it without my my effort or energy or opinion. So that's how I would interpret it. And the reason why I chose this expression, because though we described it And it seems like it's a simple concept. It seems like when it comes to humanity, humanity tends to probably prioritize narrative over nature. Would you agree with that in terms of how we conduct ourselves as a whole?
I would say, yeah, because humanity or humans or people have agendas, right? I want this for my family. I want this for my people. I want this for whatever reason. So this is the narrative that I'm going to tell so that I can get that thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would agree with your statement. Yeah.
I was reading an article. Um, it was focusing on China and how there was a woman mentioned in the story. She grew up in a urban province of China, and culturally, to be born as a woman is like frowned upon. They in China they seem to prioritize or favor boys over girls. So when this woman was a child, her parents would tell her, I wish you were a boy, and they would just make these type of statements often to her, and which to me seems like emotional abuse. Surprisingly, despite how they behaved, she was able to endure those circumstances and went on to college and was able to get a successful, high paying job. Once she was able to make money, she also paid off loans for these parents that were being verbally abusive to her, which they could have never, well, they weren't in a position to pay off the loans. After she paid off the loans, they still were harshly critical of her because, in addition to the idea that being a woman is unfavored in China, based on the article, it also states that being an unmarried woman, not even a woman, but a man, just being unmarried after a certain time period in a person's life is frowned upon. And people are subjected to gossip and negative commentary that comes from not only people outside of their families, but it comes from their close inner circles. And so it seems to me having to endure other people's negativity is not natural in that situation. It seems like the people who are being negative towards this woman, including her mother and father, have chosen to willingly adopt a narrative that because she's a girl, it's a problem for not only the country, but it's a problem for themselves as parents. And I found that to be disturbing. Want to get your perspective on that article and what I just stated.
I mean, it's cultural, right? In China, I believe they had a one child only
Yeah,
law for a long time,
yeah.
and they prefer boys over girls because boys could help the family,
Hmm.
right? Boys are stronger, boys were able to do work, boys were able to do this, they become men, blah, blah, blah. So that's culture. Why did they need more men? Was it because of war? You know, why did they, it was overpopulation? I mean, you can Google all of this stuff and understand why they did it, but it's cultural. It is what it is. I I can't I can't really speak on that situation other than, you know, whatever the facts are. I believe it is a fact that they had a one child rule.
Mm-hmm.
It is a fact that people believe boys are stronger than girls and boys could help the family more,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And if that's a cultural thing and they had the girl anyway, then, you know, they might say stuff like that. I mean, I believe because of that one child rule, there was a lot of girls that were aborted, and now they have an overpopulation of men in China.
Yes, they have a surplus of 30 million more men than women in China currently.
Right. And I mean, now this I don't know for sure, but I've heard that a lot of those men in China are going to Africa
Mm.
to build infrastructure based on the rules or the agreements that the African countries are making with China. But at the same time, these men are going to Africa to find wives
Mm-hmm.
because they don't have enough women in China.
Right, which was created by the people of China.
Correct. But, you know, again, that's context. How did that happen? What
Mm-hmm.
happened in China that forced them to make the one child rule? How did they get to the point where they made that rule? You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
yeah.
And that's the consequences of the rule. You know,
Mm-hmm.
their families wanted male children.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is what you got. So, you know, she figured it out, but obviously a man is supposed to be a worker and a woman is supposed to have children, you know, and be married by a certain age and have children. And if she doesn't do that, you know, I'm told or I've seen and I've heard in other cultures, they call you some kind of negative word because you're not married by a 30 or a waist or something like that. These different cultures, you know, they put that on women. So you know, it's their culture. You know what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
talking to a dude, you talking to a dude that was an at-home dad that was homeschooling the kids and, you know, only going outside for go to the post office. So ain't no telling. If I was a dude, what would they say about me in that culture?
Yeah. Right.
You know what I'm saying? How dare I think that?
Are are in your opinion, are narratives necessary to grow yourself?
Well, yeah, man. Look, nature is what it is. How you gonna move around depends on the narrative that you have for yourself. You gonna let somebody else paint your picture? You gonna let somebody? I mean, how many times have you seen the the oppressor dictate the narrative, and then the oppressed end up believing things that are not true?
Mm.
You know, I believe in certain cases you have to paint your own narrative.
Mm.
You know, look, you know, shit. Sometimes you down there gotta lie. You like, look, man, I didn't do it, but I'm gonna say that we did it so that they can believe that we can do it. You know, granddaddy was a soldier. No, man, I've seen the footage from the Journey of Growth podcast. He was a at home dad. No, 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 no. But you know what I'm saying, man. You like, look, yes, I believe narrative is very important, and if you let somebody else tell you what it is, then you might be doing something that goes against your best interest. You know, how many times have you seen somebody believe something that's not true, only to, you know, pay a terrible price in the end because they believed what they were told?
Mm. I think for me, I differ with you. I think narratives aren't necessary for self-growth. I theorize if nature, which is like the foundation for us being able to live here, can function without a narrative, which I think the alternative to functioning without a narrative is being intuitive, um, like the poem where it says a rose grew from concrete. I think if the rose, when it was like in its seed phase, were operating off of a narrative, it probably would have given up and not tried to break through the concrete, because um, someone would say like, "Oh, you can't break through that concrete. It's made of stone. It's too hard." But I think with intuitive energy or being intuitive, if you sense that you have a will, then there should be a way. And I think in the present moment, our instincts and our awareness when things are happening in the present allows me to move a certain way without having to generate a narrative for me to operate. And I think about just simply breathing. I don't need to generate a thought in my head to inhale or exhale. I do it like intuitively, and I'm able to do it because I can sense the availability of the air in the present moment. And I think using logic, if I'm able to do that, then in theory I should be able to move throughout life without having to create a narrative.
No, listen, I got you. The truth of the matter is the rose didn't grow through the concrete. There was either a crack and it was able to root, or enough soil or enough sediment was on the concrete that the seed or whatever was able to root,
Mhm,
right? So we know that's the fact.
mhm,
You know what I mean? So the rose growing through a concrete is a narrative.
mhm,
Sounds good.
mhm,
It's
mhm,
about struggle. Um, but again, you ideally you should be able to move through life without, you know, these stories and all that kind of shit. It just is what it is. I breathe, therefore I am. I should be allowed to forage for food, and I should be able my, this is you what you're talking about is law. This is the thing that I'm talking about when I know several people who study law, not legal, not what man says, but law. God put you on earth, and you should be able to, he gave you everything that you needed to live, right?
yeah.
Law. There's a river. I need a fish. I don't need 10,000 fishes. I just need one. And it's abundance of fish, right?
Yeah.
But then somebody comes along and put up a fence and some barbed wire in the factory, and they say that you can't go fish. You got to go work in the factory so that you can get green paper rectangles so that you can buy fish in a can, right?
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck is work? My job is to get up in the morning and go down to the river and get a fish. That's my job. But somebody else can put up a fence. So now if I cross that fence, I'm on private property and I can be taken to jail and my freedom can be taken away because you impede in my ability to, my birthright.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you should be able to do that. You should be able to move intuitively. But what do you do when you hit that fence? That was put there by somebody else's narrative, somebody else's legal reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
You can jump the fence, right?
Yeah.
But now you got to deal with these codes and these legalese that say you're not supposed to be on this side of the imaginary line that wasn't there yesterday.
Mm.
You know, so I agree with what you're saying. How do you do that when other people put these imaginary lines in place and enforce them with, you know, weapons and taking away your property, your freedom, and your life based on these narratives that they've put in place?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I relate to what you're saying. Well, we've reached the end of the Journey of Self-Growth podcast, episode 9. I enjoyed my conversation with you, Trav. What would your parting words be?
My parting words would be go, explore, browse, share, and repeat. Artifacts by Trav Lyrics. It's down there in the corner. You see where it's right there. You see it right there? I don't know if they can see it, but that's what it is. Hashtag Artifacts by Trav Lyrics. You know, browse my work. I'm an artist first. So I would like for you to see it, hear it, and if you see something that you appreciate and you value and it feels a requirement, don't hesitate to collect it, you know, buy it, share it, wear it. And if you can grab anything out of this conversation, you know, that's great. And if you didn't grab anything out of this conversation, that's great too. You know, it is what it is. If you made it, how long is this conversation? 2
It was
hours?
hour and a half.
Hour and a half. So hopefully you got something. What did my partner used to say? Hopefully you got some good food and it ain't bubble gum. You know, bubble gum is not meant to be digested. Good food is meant to be digested so that you can use it as energy. So hopefully this conversation has not been bubble gum and you got some good food.
Thank you.
Oh, wait.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, last thing. Linktree. You got to throw that Linktree in there. Linktree. linktr.ee/by-Trav-Lyrics. There you go.
And
Go there.
if you want to also follow Trav on Instagram, I did put his handle in the description. With that being said, I appreciate everybody listening in, and I hope everyone will enjoy the rest of the evening. I appreciate you all. Good night.